Welcome to the fifth explainer in the series of human consciousness in the context of Indian knowledge systems and modern sciences, titled Nature of Human Consciousness. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. So, in our previous discussions, we laid down some really critical groundwork, but today we are tackling one of the most profound and honestly deeply fascinating topics imaginable. We're going to explore how ancient Indian philosophical traditions understand the very fabric of who and what we are. We'll be looking specifically at Tantra, Vedanta, and Samkhya-Yoga philosophies. And what's so cool about this is that each of these traditions provides its own unique, highly detailed framework for comprehending the nature of our awareness and its ultimate evolution. So get comfortable, tune in, and let's embark on this journey together.
Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap for today. We have 5 main stops. First, the bedrock of reality. Second, Tantra and cosmic energy. Third, Vedanta, the ultimate unity. Fourth, Samkhya-Yoga and dualism. And finally, number 5, the journey to liberation.
Starting right off with Section 1, the bedrock of reality, where we'll be defining the foundation of existence.
So I want you to take a second and really ponder this question. What is the true nature of consciousness? For a lot of us living in the modern world, answering this requires a pretty massive paradigm shift. You see, we're heavily conditioned by a materialist perspective. We're essentially taught to think of consciousness as just a byproduct of the brain. A secondary effect of physical conditions, firing neurons, biological processes, that sort of thing. We kind of just assume matter came first, and consciousness somehow sprouted out of it later. But the ancient Indian traditions we're exploring today, they flip that assumption completely upside down. They don't see consciousness as a byproduct at all. Instead, they view consciousness as the core, the absolute bedrock of reality itself. It's not something that happens to matter. It is the fundamental foundation from which literally everything else in the universe arises.
Because according to these Indian knowledge systems, consciousness isn't just the act of being physically awake or, aware of your immediate surroundings. It's defined as the fundamental aspect of reality and the ultimate objective of human existence. Just think about the magnitude of that statement for a second. Developing and expanding your consciousness is considered the very purpose of life. It's framed as this active, continuous, and highly dynamic process. It is a profound journey of transitioning from a state of slavery where we're bound by material limitations, physical desires, and this really narrow, isolated individual awareness, moving all the way to a sweeping state of absolute liberation and universal realization.
Let's move right into Section 2, Tantra and cosmic energy, exploring the dynamic interplay of the universe.
So in Tantra, the material world around us isn't just a bunch of inert stuff sitting there. It is actually the manifestation of a dynamic, continuous interplay between two fundamental cosmic principles, Shiva and Shakti. Shiva represents pure, unadulterated consciousness. Shakti is the primordial energy of the universe. To really wrap your head around this, think of Shiva as the profound, unmoving stillness at the very bottom of the deepest ocean, and Shakti as the dynamic, crashing waves up on the surface. The entire cosmos is essentially an expression of these two forces dancing together. And honestly, what's truly amazing about Tantra is its bifocal nature. It states that this exact same interplay happening on a cosmic, macro level out there in the vast universe is also happening on an individual, micro level right inside of you. You are quite literally a mirror of the cosmos.
Okay, so how do we practically realize this within the Tantric tradition? Well, the agamas, which are the sacred texts providing the foundation for Tantric practice, give us a very specific methodology. The whole process starts with awakening the Kundalini. This is described as an incredibly powerful, dormant spiritual energy that's essentially coiled up right at the base of your vertebrae. Through the recitation of specific mantras, precise physical and spiritual rituals, and deep meditative practices, a practitioner actually learns to wake this sleeping force up. The second step involves taking this awakened energy and raising it upwards through the body's subtle energy centers, which you've probably heard of, known as chakras. Each chakra acts as this transformative threshold. Finally, the ultimate goal is reaching the Sahasrara, the summit chakra located right at the crown of the head. When the Kundalini energy successfully makes it all the way up to this peak, it triggers a profound union with cosmic consciousness. It is an intensely dynamic, highly energetic method for expanding and elevating the human mind to its highest possible potential.
Transitioning now to Section 3, Vedanta, the ultimate unity, where we look at the infinite source of existence.
Advaita Vedanta is honestly breathtaking in its philosophical clarity. In this particular tradition, consciousness is the ultimate reality, and it's given the name Brahman. Brahman is the infinite, formless, and eternal source of all existence.
Vedanta insists, very firmly, that consciousness is not a product of material conditions in any way, shape, or form. Rather, it is the fundamental underlying nature of all entities. Literally everything that exists is permeated by this pure, unblemished awareness. So because of that, the ultimate goal of human existence in Vedanta is beautifully simple, yet incredibly profound. It is achieving the complete realization of unity between the individual self, which is known as the Atman, and the universal reality, Brahman. You're basically realizing that your core, innermost essence, is the exact same essence as the entire universe itself.
But obviously, that brings up a huge question. If we're all fundamentally unified with the infinite source, why on earth do we feel so separated? Why is human life often so incredibly difficult and painful? Well, Vedanta points to a concept called Maya. Maya is the illusion of individual consciousness. Think of it this way. Imagine putting on a highly advanced virtual reality headset and suddenly forgetting that you're wearing it. You get so completely absorbed in this simulation, you feel the digital wind, you're running from the virtual monsters, you're desperately seeking digital rewards, to the point that you genuinely forget you are sitting completely safe in your living room. That is exactly how Maya operates. It's this cosmic veil that tricks us into perceiving ourselves as isolated, separate entities that are detached from the rest of the universe. This illusion of duality, this deeply ingrained idea of me versus everything else, is considered the absolute root source of human suffering. Because we forget our true, infinite nature, we become completely entangled in the anxieties, fears, and limitations of this temporary material world.
To overcome all of this suffering, Vedanta offers a highly contemplative path known as Jnana Yoga, which translates to the path of knowledge. The method here isn't necessarily about channeling cosmic energy like we saw in Tantra. Instead, it's about shifting your perception entirely through intense self-inquiry and meditation. By rigorously questioning the nature of the self, constantly asking, "Who am I?" and piercing through that veil of Maya, the practitioner aims to actively dissolve the illusion of duality. Going back to our analogy, it's like actively trying to take that virtual reality headset off. When the headset of Maya is finally removed, the illusion completely falls away, and you wake up to your eternal, infinite nature. This ultimate awakening is called moksha. Moksha is total liberation. It is the freedom of the soul from the endless cycle of birth and death, fully realizing its absolute identity with Brahman. Moving right along to Section 4, Samkhya-Yoga and Dualism, focusing on the separation of consciousness and matter.
So let's break down this dualistic perspective, because it's quite different from what we just talked about. Samkhya philosophy categorizes all of reality into two discrete, eternal principles, Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha is pure, unaltered consciousness. It is the silent, passive observer. It doesn't act, it just witnesses everything. On the other hand, we have Prakriti, which is the dynamic, material aspect of existence. This is the physical matter, the active mind, the ego, the ever-changing physical world around us. I like to think of Purusha as a person sitting quietly in a movie theater, and Prakriti as the action-packed movie playing on the screen. According to Samkhya, human suffering basically arises from a tragic case of mistaken identity. Purusha, the pure consciousness, becomes so unbelievably engrossed in the movie of Prakriti that it completely forgets it's just the observer. You know the feeling, right? You're clutching your armrests during a car chase, your heart is racing, you genuinely feel the sorrow of the characters. You mistake the movie for reality. And that's what we do in life. We start believing we are our physical bodies, our racing thoughts, and our material circumstances, entirely losing sight of our true nature as the passive, pure, untouched observer.
Yoga, specifically Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga, provides the incredibly practical methodology to solve this exact problem of entanglement. It gives us a rigorous, step-by-step approach to disciplining both the mind and the body. The goal here is to purify consciousness and systematically separate it from that material identification. Practices like dhyana, which is deep, uninterrupted meditation, dharana, razor-focused concentration, and tapas, profound self-discipline, are indispensable tools on this path. Through these really intense practices, the practitioner meticulously untangles Purusha from Prakriti. They basically learn to watch the movie without getting lost in it. The ultimate destination of this path is Kaivalya. Kaivalya is the state of absolute independence of consciousness. It's a state of complete, irrevocable liberation where Purusha rests entirely in its uncontaminated, pure state, forever freed from the bonds of matter and the exhausting cycle of everyday life.
And finally, Section 5, the journey to liberation, where we'll look at this from an integrated perspective.
To synthesize everything we've covered today, we basically have three distinct traditions. First, Tantra uses the dynamic method of ascending chakras to achieve an energetic union with cosmic consciousness. Second, Vedanta utilizes intense self-inquiry and the intellectual dissolution of the ego to realize our non-dual nature and our ultimate identity with Brahman. And third, Samkhya-Yoga applies the deeply disciplined practices of Ashtanga Yoga to achieve a complete, pristine separation of pure consciousness from material entanglement. Now, while the core metaphysics and the daily, practical techniques vary greatly from one another, the overarching narrative across all three is absolutely identical. In every single instance, human consciousness is viewed as vastly more than just the baseline awareness of the physical world. It is seen as an active, continuous process of moving away from limited, individual awareness, deliberately overcoming ignorance, and stepping into deeper, far more refined states of universal knowledge. They might take different roads, but they all lead to the exact same ultimate objective of human existence: profound, unshakable, universal liberation.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to chew on. Can modern individuals apply these ancient pathways to break free from their own material entanglements today? We live in a highly material, incredibly fast-paced world. We are constantly identifying with our external circumstances, our jobs, our digital avatars, our social media presence. But these deeply rooted ancient traditions remind us that our true nature is so much more profound than the screen we're staring at. Perhaps there is immense, untapped value in exploring these ancient blueprints to help us transcend our modern physical limitations. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the nature of human consciousness. If you found this breakdown valuable and you want to continue exploring these fascinating topics with us, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel so you never miss an explainer. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep expanding your consciousness.